It is a time of legend. The galaxy is in flames. The Emperor's glorious vision for humanity is in ruins. His favored son, Horus, has embraced chaos, and to the birthplace of humanity, his mighty armada enacts his dark compliance. The skies are permanent night. The walls are breached. The end is here. For the fate of the throne world, for the fate of mankind itself, the siege of Terra, Saturnine, begins.
I have seen enough,
said Kirill Sinderman, to the rain and the air and the weeds.
If he knew that history was going to eat itself, why didn't he tell us? Our beloved Emperor. If he had a plan, why didn't he share it? If he had a plan, is this it? What was he thinking?
Were you addressing me?
Sinderman started. He almost slipped off the wet ledge. He bent down, steadied himself with one hand on the damp stone and looked around.
Who's there?
He asked, a halt in his voice.
I thought I was alone up here. Were you addressing me?
Sinderman began to climb down. Suddenly the drop terrified him. He clutched the parapet to stop himself toppling. A figure pushed aside dank vines and tangled branches and stepped onto the path. The cloth of his mantle was jeweled with raindrops.
Sinderman, what the hell are you doing?
My lord, I come here from time to time.
Rogel Dawn, several times Sinderman's size, took his arm and lifted him off the parapet like a small child. He set him down.
Were you going to jump?
My lord, I come here from time to time. No, my lord. I came to view the scene. It is perhaps the best vantage point. So high up, I came to observe and gain a greater perspective.
Dawn frowned and nodded. The Praetorian's massive form was unarmored. A yellow wool tunic, his dead father's old, fur-edged robe, an overcloak of grey.
Is that why you are here?
Sinderman asked. He wiped the rain from his brow.
No.
Your pardon. I'll leave you to...
Sinderman, were you going to jump?
Sinderman looked up into the giant's eyes. No lie could exist there.
No. No, I don't think I was, after all.
It's all right to be afraid.
Are you not afraid?
Dawn paused. The rain ran down his temples. It appeared he was actually considering the question, which Sinderman had regretted the moment it came out.
That's a luxury I'm not permitted.
Do you wish you were?
I don't know. I don't know what it feels like. What does it feel like?
Like...
Sinderman shrugged.
How do you feel?
I feel a biting at my throat, a pounding inflammation of my mind. I feel the limit of my ability, and yet I must give more. And I don't know where that will come from.
Then I think, if I may be so audacious as to say so, you are feeling afraid.
Dawn's eyes widened slightly. He stared into the distance.
Really? That's a very bold thing to say to me, Sinderman.
Agreed. I apologize. 30 seconds ago I was intent on flinging myself from the parapet. So speaking truth to a Lord Primarch is not quite so daunting as perhaps it once might have been. Actually, that is a lie, now I think on it. Damn me, offending you is more alarming than the prospect of my own death. I can't believe I said that.
Don't apologize. Fear. So that's what it tastes like. Well, well.
What are you afraid of?
Sinderman asked. Dawn looked at him and frowned, as if he didn't understand.
What are you really afraid of?
Too many things. Everything. For now, I'm simply afraid of the idea that I can, after all, know fear.
He paused. Then, as an afterthought,
For throne's sake, don't tell Rabute.
I won't, my lord.
Good.
You should tell him yourself.
Dawn looked to Sinderman.
You think I'll get that chance? That's not the optimism of a man bent on ending his life.
Further evidence, my lord, that I was just up here enjoying the view.
They fell silent. Rain drizzled around them.
What were you doing up here, lord?
I find, Iterator, as this onslaught wears on, it's fruitful to step away. Just now and then. An hour alone here or in the Chokang Oasis, to clear my head, to re-see what I have seen. It's all in here.
They fell silent again.
Have you given up on history?
You heard that part, then.
History eating itself. Yes.
The Order of Remembrances is long dissolved by council edict. Its purpose is curtailed.
It was necessary to control the flow of ideas. Fundamentally necessary as a measure of security. The word of the enemy can be toxic. The idea of treason is toxic. It is infectious. You know that. Censorship is abhorrent to me. It runs against the principles of the society we were meant to be building. Great Terra, I'm beginning to sound as high-minded as Gilliman. In better times, we might at least have gently humored. I stand opposed to all that woman Keeler represents, but I would defend her right to say it. In better times. But words and ideas have become dangerous, Sinderman. I don't have to explain that to you, of all people.
I understand, I do. And what is there left to tell anyway? What words left to use?
Sinderman, find some.
Lord, some what?
Some words, and people to help you use them. The Order may be gone, but I feel we need remembrances now. More than before, maybe, and unofficially, perhaps. I would support the idea. To see the truth, to report it, to write it down.
Why, Lord?
Sinderman said. Dawn fixed him with a steady gaze.
Historians toil at the past, but they write for the future. That's the point of them. If I know there are historians still at work, it tells me there will be a future. I think that might strengthen my resolve. The idea of a future, a far future, that will exist and want to remember. It would fortify my purpose and offer me hope. If the historians give up, then we're admitting an end is coming. Go do the work the Emperor once gave you, and remind me that some future is still a possibility for us.
I will, Lord,
said Sinderman. He swallowed hard, and pretended that the rain was in his eyes again.
If we win this, it will be the greatest thing we ever do.
Dawn turned, feeling the tremble beneath his feet. The vibrations that should be impossible beneath the Saturnine wall. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Unknown Iterator, second millennium. A Praetorian upon the homeworld of humanity stands in the rain. The pinnacle of the Emperor's genetic science. Yet fear runs through his veins. In the fires and destruction of Horus's ambition, history is yet to be written. And so, hope remains. Bab Bastion. The wall of noise, the data feeds, the alerts and Vox communiques was an overstimulation. "Where is Dawn?" asked Nibiran, his cutting tone bringing the Solar Auxilia commanders to silence. "I will allow you some latitude, Colonel," said Arcamus. The green glow of the Strategium washing Astartes and mortal uniforms in the same hue. "The circumstances are shit," interrupted Colonel Bronn, "and getting shitter by the second. And Dawn is absent. He is supposed to be running this. He's supposed to be the bastard genius. Consider your tone, please, Colonel," Arcamus suggested. The Lion's Gate spaceport had fallen. The Aegis was breached near a dozen places. Men like Nibiran and Bronn were the best the Imperium had to offer. But they were only human. Endless shifts of grueling command wore down the mind of even the best. The skies of Terra were permanent night, cloaked with fire and smoke and ash. Millions battled in the trenches and walls against untold horrors, as the tide of the broken and the damned never ceased. The billions displaced were welling in from the Lion's Gate, and the other gatehouses of the Ultima War, driven from their homes in Magnificent and Interior, desperate for salvation in the Inner Palace. It had become a war beyond comprehension, a travesty beyond mortal understanding. "Get out." The words were whispered, and yet were heard by all. He towered above them, his armor dented and scorched in places, blood stained upon his cheeks and furs. It was beyond the mortals in the room, to how a being that large could move so silently. "Get out," said Jagatai Khan, looking down at Bronn. "Colonel Bronn is tired, Lord, and spoke poorly," Nibiran began. "I care not," said the Great Khan. "My lord," Nibiran pressed, "Colonel Bronn is a senior and decorated army officer, and an essential part of the—" "Silence," said the Great Khan. Nibiran glanced around the room and sighed. His question was insolently framed, but his point is valid, he said, looking directly into the Primarch's eyes. "My lord," he added. "You too," said the Great Khan. "Get out." The veteran colonels of Terra departed, the Khan not even looking back, as he began to clean the blood from his face and hair. The data feeds washed before his Primarch eyes. Army lines were fracturing across the north, from the fallen Lion's Gate. Concentrated efforts were pushing towards the last spaceport at Eternity. Allied Vox signals were unreliable, and the sightings of demons had to be relied upon mortal sight alone. For all his brother's meticulous plans, the siege had become flexible, factors changing as quickly as the wind. Had this become a war beyond mortal endurance, beyond even Astartes and a son of the Emperor? Jagatai looked again to the Eternity spaceport. "They want it. Get as much on the ground as they can to knock us out." "It is what I would do," said Dawn. He stood at the front of the platform steps, looking up at them. "And it's what I know our brother Perturabo would do. Maximize landing capacity. Deprive us of orbital access. I am sure this is how Horus has instructed." "They want them both," said Jagatai Khan. "They want them both. They want everything," said Dawn. "He wants our father," said the Khan quietly. He wants unhindered access to the palace. He has one foothold. He wants another. It is not complex, Rogel. Not anymore. Eternity Warport must be defended and held. Lionsgate Spaceport must be retaken. It is an offense they have claimed it at all. It was unavoidable, said Dawn. A feral crest and chains now decorated the Mars-patterned Warhound Titan. Corpses rattled on its lumbering form, as through the hail of fire, giants emerged, supporting melter cannons the size of towers pulsing with dark heat. "Fall back!" Helen yelled into the box. A blast took him off his feet. He tumbled in the polluted air until an angel caught him. "No, brother," the angel said, meeting Helen's gaze through a cracked visor. "Not yet," Sanguinius said, letting him go and turning to the mangled lip of the wall. The Lord of Blood leapt off, his wings unfurling as he plunged down into the enemy. Red armor swarmed the ash-choked lines as the great angel soared into the air, a halo of dust at his feet. Sanguinius dove like a bird of prey and rammed his spear through a titan's face. The warhound stumbled backwards, sparks spraying from the gaping puncture, oil oozing like blood. Sanguinius swept clear of the chasing hail of fire. His wings carried him faster than the warlord could traverse. He banked again, climbing, his wings beating at the limit of their strength, as he soared again into the engine's right flank. With the strength of a demigod, he plunged his spear into its nape. The Titan's vox howled bleats from whatever corrupted machine lay within, as micro-explosions bloomed from within, lighting its hulking frame. The Lord of Blood flew clear, as the cacophonous boom radiated half a kilometer around. An angel landed on the butchered earth, facing his kill, backlit by the machine's huge pyre. He rose and unfurled his wings, spear and blade glinting, as he gazed at the three remaining warhounds. "Try, if you like," Sanguinius yelled up at them. "Shall we continue?" The quarry retreated, its traitorous mortal and Astarte contingent scrambling beneath them. "My lord," said Ran, climbing the rubble to Sanguinius' side. "They will tell stories of this deed." "No, Ran," Sanguinius replied softly, looking out across the devastation. "No story will come of this. There are too many stories, Fafnir, my dear brother, and most will be forgotten in a moment, as the next takes its place. This is everywhere." Dawn glanced at Custodian Swotumu and Legionary Cadwalder, both who had taken station inside the door. "So, what is about to take place?" Baldur asked. Dawn raised his finger. "Not yet," he said. "For now, small talk. I don't believe I need to point out to you that we have precious little time for such luxuries these days," said Baldur. "Indulge me," said the Praetorian, as Baldur sat back and shrugged. "How did you settle things with your brother?" he asked, as if the Khan's outburst had been mundane. "Jagatai. Well enough. He wants to go to the port," Dawn replied. "Of course he does," said Baldur. "Defensive doctrines are not his preference." "Not fair," the chief custodian replied. "The Kagan simply defends by attack." "It doesn't help when Jagatai storms in and dismisses two good senior officers out of hand." "For what crime?" Baldur asked. "Being tired. Speaking too frankly. Being human." Nibiran and Bron, Dawn spoke. Names well known to the chief custodian. "Saw Nibiran's been there since day one," said Baldur, scowling. "And he's probably burned out. It happens. Isn't he too old for active line?" he asked. I mean, the fellow's only human. I don't think age limit factors into this anymore, Dawn replied. Both fell into silence, neither good at casual conversation. We were born for more, Dawn muttered, his mind dreaming of a time of peace, one he may never see. He realized he had spoken out loud, unguarded. He made to brush the remark aside, but Valdor met his eyes, and simply nodded. In those eyes that had seen lifetimes of war, it held a sympathy that the Emperor had crafted them for more than just endless war. We were, he said, born to fashion a future, and enjoy it, said Dawn. Enjoy it, yes, Valdor replied. Be part of it, not just as midwives. When we were made, the future was full, and now there is only war, Dawn said somberly. Valdor exhaled, and brushed his fingers through his strip of hair, chuckling to himself. We will prevail, Rogel. One day you'll break your sword and hang up your shield, and you will sit and laugh, and from the window see golden towers standing without fear, or aegis or batteries, free from all possibility of threat because of what we do now. You believe that, without hesitation, don't you, Custodian? Dawn replied flatly. I have to, said Valdor. The alternative is unacceptable. The candles flickered out. Swordsimo and Cadwallader drew their weapons. As a shadow moved next to Dawn, they sheathed their blades when they realized who it was. I am glad you could join me, mistress, said Dawn. Genetia Kroll, mistress of the Silent Sisterhood, saluted in Thoughtmark, and took a seat at the table. Her very presence was a miasma to the senses, a blank that cast a shadow so great, few would even remember that she was there. It was only when Malkador stepped into the room the true conversation could begin, veiled by Genetia's silence. She was a blur, a smudge, a ghost observing humanity, a piece of furniture in the room, while legends decided the fate of the Imperium. Dawn spoke of the 4 crisis points: Gorgon Bar, Colossi Gate, Eternity Wall Port, and a 4th. Kroll's features blinked, even though none could see it. What is the 4th? Kroll asked in Thoughtmark, making several attempts as they failed to notice her. She made a dent upon the table, the frustration of a lifetime boiling over, as all 3 lords of the Imperium looked at her, their eyes straining with effort to resolve her true features. What is the 4th? Her hand asked insistently. Saturnine, said Dawn finally. There was a weakness, something their enemies would no doubt but notice and exploit. It looks like nothing, said Dawn. I caught it by chance, entirely by chance, a few days ago. The enemy could cut to the heart of the palace, a spear tip to the gut, and decapitate the head. The Emperor. 4 stations: Gorgon Bar, Colossi Gate, Eternity Wall Spaceport, and Saturnine. And they had the forces for 3. Each bastion housed millions, entire families, mortals and Astartes giving their lives in numbers that went beyond the pale. The blood drained from Custodian Suotumu, Cadwallader, and Kroll, as Dawn voiced the decision he had already made. We give up the port, said Dawn. It is a massive loss, but is the least worst of our options. There was a moment of silence. The port, whispered Malkador, with a frail nod, as Valdor sat back, a terrible rage in his eyes. The port, the Captain General conceded. It would have to be convincing. So every soul in Eternity Spaceport were dead men walking. A distraction for a gambit that could succeed or fail. "To undertake Saturnine successfully," said Dawn slowly, "he will send an elite force. It's a decapitation strike. He will use the very best." Valdor and Malkador's eyes widened in shock. "Oh, Terra," said Valdor. "Is that why we haven't seen him yet?" "You know him," said Dawn. "He wants that glory, in person. He wants to be the one that spills blood across the throne." War horns boomed. Haunting, howling sounds that vibrated the entire body. 24 streets away, true giants loomed out of the haze. Titans. Glimpsed between soaring towers as they strode forward, demolishing walls and whole buildings. Infernal banners and corpses displayed upon their masts. Their vast weapons pulsed with dark fire. Blinding flashes that scored the retina. Static shock that lifted the hair. Heat wash that seared the skin like sunburn. Even from 24 streets away. It was human mythology made real and terrible in steel. "We will die now," thought Joseph. And then he laughed out loud at his own arrogance. They had been running, all of them, until an Astarte stood in their path. Obscured by the haze of smoke and embers, a scarred seed shield propped on one hand, and a longsword resting across a huge shoulder guard. The giant's plate was dented and scored, as amber eye lenses bored into the mortals before them. The men and women stood, and sent thanks to some universal force for the amber on their plate. "I am Joseph Bacco Monday, 18th Regiment, North Resistance Army," Joseph called out. "I don't need to know," the legionary replied, without glancing back. "And show some damn noise discipline." "I need you to know," said Joseph. The legionary halted and looked back. "That doesn't matter." "It matters to me," said Joseph. "It's all we have." The Marine looked to the 12-strong group, their faces and uniforms slick with blood and ash, obscuring near all identifiers. "I am Joseph Bacco Monday, 18th Regiment, North Afric Resistance Army. I am William Cordy, 33rd Panpak, Lift Mobile," said William. "Jen Croder, 22nd Cantium Hort." On and on they went. It was no call sign. It was resistance. It was a statement to the universe that they were here, and that they had lived. Finally, silence reigned, until the Astarte spoke. "I am Camber Diaz. Follow me." The group led by the giant in amber moved on. Only Joseph remained. In one look, Joseph knew she was a dead man walking. "I want it to be quick," the woman said, clutching the explosive in her hand. "It hasn't been quick up till now. Go on your way. I'll count to 100. The ash crunched softly under Joseph's feet, as after 100 paces, a soft boom echoed in the ruins. Diaz looked at Joseph. "That was stupid," he said. "I'm only human, Lord," Joseph replied. Diaz stared at him. Joseph felt unsure, as if the true crime was a signal or just being human. Then the shouts grew. Traitor Guard emerged whooping from the broken pathways. A man and woman were cut down besides Joseph. As first the Astartes then mortals returned fire. "Hold ground. Selective shots. Fire," Diaz ordered. Some of the traitor Reavers were abhuman giants, taking 2 or 3 shots to bring them down. Then a true giant emerged. Astartes, pounding forward in white plates stained in blood. A descending chain axe met rising shield. Joseph scattered. All the mortals did, for this was a battle beyond them. Diaz drew his blade, lunging forward, only to be battered away and thrown into a pool of filthy water. His entire form submerged. Joseph looked on in horror. Abhumans and traitor mortals fell, but he could not tear his eyes from the swollen bulk of the World Eater. It was a rabid beast, snarling and pushing down, chain-axe teeth sparking. Its strength seemed to surpass its loyalist brethren. Another Imperial fist flanked it, firing a point-blank shot into its head. Yet it still moved, battering away 2 others. In the name of his Lord Dawn, Camber Diaz rose, murky waters pouring off his form as he rammed his blade into the traitor's gut. Still the beast struggled, frothing with violence as the other fists poured their entire clips into it. Finally, it went limp, splashing and falling into the murky depths. Diaz turned to the survivors. "Stay in formation when I tell you to," he said. Her hair was loose, unwashed. Her skin was an unhealthy pallor. She wore army surplus breeches, baggy and oversized. The solar prison quarters were hardly something one would call comforting. Yet it might have been the decadent inner quarters of the palace compared to outside. "I was close to giving up," said Sinderman calmly. "Giving everything up. My faith gone. My faith in everything, including the rationale of our Imperium. Someone reminded me that we're not just battling for our lives. We're battling for our way of living." "There's only one thing to fight for," said Euphrates Keeler. "And that is?" Sinderman asked. "The Emperor, Kirill." "And what is the Emperor?" asked Harry. To Keeler's eyes, the boy was little more than 20. It appeared the remembrances had been reborn, and were recruiting young in these last days. Keeler smiled. "People get uncomfortable when I answer that question." "Why?" asked Harry. "What do you tell them?" Keeler beamed at the young man. "Our throne, Kirill. Did you not brief this poor child? Doesn't he know what kind of poison I spread?" "I think he's teasing you," said Sinderman, glancing at Harry. "Are you teasing?" "A little bit, sir," said Harry. Keeler laughed at his response. "Oh, I like you. My apologies, Kirill. I should have known you'd choose bright, clever people. He looks so innocent. How old is he?" "Old enough," said Harry. Keeler snatched the data slate from his hands and began to read, giggling at his notes. "Promulgator of the so-called Levicio Divinitatis," said Keeler, reading his notes out loud. "Removed to the Blackstone facility, pale, hair untied, appears unwashed." She turned her head slowly to Harry. "Unremarkable." She found it hard to disagree, for it was the truth. She was unremarkable, compared to the idea in her mind. She turned to Sinderman. "All I could do was keep my faith," she said. "And I could not," Sinderman replied, almost a confession. "Not the way you needed me to." "But it wasn't faith, Kirill. You had proof, the evidence of your senses. You no longer had to rely on faith. You witnessed." "Witnessing is what broke me, Euphrates." Keeler looked stunned. "I began to think, if he is divine, and I have seen proof of that, why does he not act? Why doesn't he end this? Because surely he can. Why does he let us suffer? My faith could not survive the proof. I could not bear the idea he was allowing this." The two fell silent, until Sinderman handed Keeler the writ. It was not freedom, but a charter. The instruction of remembrance. She sighed. "It's the same argument as when we set out to join the great fleets. War is a necessity, but But our culture is more than that. We were more than destroyers. We were not an army. We were a culture. That happens to have an army, Harry interjected. I'm growing to like him again, said Keeler. She looked at the writ in her hands. Orders signed by Dawn, under the symbol of the Sigillite. Those with instruction were to record history, even on its darkest day. Perhaps it would never be seen, but the act itself was resistance. From the shadows in the chamber, a golden giant emerged. Keeler is not permitted to go beyond the bounds of this vault, said Custodian Amon, his voice deep and resonant. I believe the Emperor is a god. Keeler hissed across the table at Harry in mock conspiracy. I know, Harry replied. An actual god, Keeler hissed again. I know, Mom. And that's not a popular concept, especially with the Emperor. Please stop that, said Amon. Keeler was forbidden to leave this facility, but still she stood. There was over 9,000 prisoners within the solar vaults, so her work began here. They came from the southeastern end of the Colossi outworks, sweeping around north in an arc. 330 jet bikes, the roar of them a cacophonous boom, as slow smoke tumbled in their backwash. The Kagan and his sons roared towards the enemy's loose horde. It was as if time crawled to a glacial pace. Then the White Scar's guns fired, carving channels through lines of smoke. They punched into traitor mortals and mutants, their forms ripped and torn, blood sweltering, as the White Scars kept soaring forward, never for a second breaking formation, despite the returning gunfire that clipped at their armor. One jet bike cartwheeled, gushing into flame and the rider lost, yet still not one looked back. The Great Khan and his sons plowed into the enemy, gleaming talwars cleaving heads, bodies broken by the impact of bikes, as the roar of Chagorian laughter echoed. The laughing warriors who lived to fight simmered down to silence as they pressed into the second wave. The hatred was mutual between the White Scars and Death Guard. Opposites in doctrines and beliefs. Opposites in loyalties. The charge slammed into Mortarian's sons. Bloated forms were torn through as Astartes were gummed up in the mass of meat and metal. White Scars were torn from their bikes as Death Guard were gutted and gunned down. The mortals from the trench line saw the Great Khan as a demigod of battle that he was. A blur. A wind that could not be caged, surrounded by corpses. Jagatai Khan swung his dao, cutting through armor like fat. Then the war calls of Chagoris bellowed from his lips. Jet bikes gunned. The shriek of engines rose again as the bikes turned, ramming back through the bodies, arms outstretched to grab their wounded as gunfire chased them. From the smoke, a chorus of jet bikes roared back towards Colossi. Dozens dead or wounded, yet hundreds slaughtered in their fury. Radon turned to face the line of faces, most in awe or stunned. The smile was still on his face. You have seen the White Scars do what the White Scars do. It is rare for any to witness it. I confess I have relished it every time I've been lucky enough to watch it happen. Abaddon halted the Mournival, at the edge of the Lord of Iron's strategium. What? Asked Horus Aximand through scarred lips. Afraid we might break the bastard's train of thought. Balls up his plans. Tormageddon chuckled. There was little love lost between the Mournival and the Lord of Iron. Too many slights had amassed, but grudges had to be put aside. This was a war for the new master of mankind. This was a war for Horus. The Lord of Iron was a giant like all his kin, strapped into an iron throne of winding cables and data screens. Abaddon was in no doubt he was a mirror to the Praetorian, each writing history with one choice at a time. And Abaddon could not lie to himself. He had seen many of the Emperor's sons across the Great Crusade, yet Perturabo's genius was beyond impressive. He was no observer. He was part of it, immersed in the flow of noosphere like a Mechanicum priest. "Why do you wait?" Lord Eidolon asked. Abaddon glanced at the 3rd Legion champion, his features forever distorted by his death and rebirth. He looked to Abaddon like a melted candle, warped by heat. Eidolon's retinue trailed him, wretched and gaudy, in their enhanced and augmented battle plate. Their faces, and in some cases their form, had grown wildly misshapen. The very visage of their armour brought forward the grotesque. "Respect," Abaddon suggested. "Also, there's a wonderful view," said Horus Aximand. "Respect for what?" asked Eidolon, his throat inflating and deflating like an amphibian. "There is work to be done. My beloved lord grows many more supple breasts every day," asked Aximand. Falcus Kyber snorted. "Oh, how you play, little Horus. He is changed, aren't we all? All of us made glorious, even those in your own clumsy ranks." He looked at Tormageddon, the being crafted from the meat of their old friend, the constant reminder by their side, the failed visage of a man who had once been joyous and loved. "My Lord Fulgrim grows impatient. Let's split the sanctum open and have done with this delay." Abaddon sighed. "Eidolon, I am dismayed to find myself agreeing with you, and with the desires of your lord and master." "Really?" replied Eidolon. "You know how very much that pains me," said Abaddon, uncaring for Eidolon's judgment. "I am gratified that good sense can be spoken between us," Eidolon continued, the milky whites of his eyes unblinking. "Lord Fulgrim's proposal of a full and focused assault is attractive," said Kyber, "but it will be dismissed. It's contrary to the War Master's instructions, and to Lord Perturabo's plans." Abaddon made to step forward. "I will go no further," said Horus Aximand. Abaddon glanced at him. "Why? Are you afraid he will refuse?" he asked. Aximand hesitated. He knew better, and gave an obvious lie, as Abaddon grunted and turned to pace towards the Lord of Iron's sanctum. Aximand stood beside the broken puppet of Tormageddon, the wretched parody of the friend he had murdered little comfort. The latest nights he had been uneasy, for the dreams had begun again. The breath on his neck and in his ear, the sensation of someone just out of sight, and the face that haunted him. Loken. Always Garviel Loken.
"I learned it from my brother, Rogel Dawn. I trust that suitably amuses you, Abaddon."
"I'd like to know it,"
"Data,"
said Perturabo, as if that were the answer itself.
"Vast amounts, in any battle, any war. In this, you can imagine the scale."
"I can."
"Constantly. When I was younger, I bent myself to that task, unstinting. I would not leave the strategium or the noospheric uploads for a moment until the action was complete. I never took my eyes off the game."
"I've seen you do it, and few can begin to do it like you."
"One can. Test exercises. 9 times he beat me. This was in the early days. I couldn't fathom how. Do you know what I did?"
"No, Lord."
"I asked him."
He made a sound, a grating sound, that Abaddon realized was a rueful. perhaps melancholic chuckle.
I asked him, Abaddon. We were brothers then. Such interactions were possible.
And?
He told me, and understand this, he was willing. He was glad to share a technique with me. He told me that data can blind. The weight of it, the burden of detail, especially if one engages with it without a break or rest. He told me he had learned to step away. Step away, even at the height of conflict, if you can believe that. To clear his mind and focus. To shed the extraneous and the superficial. To contemplate. To reduce the immeasurable complexity of the arithmetic down to simple principles. Thus renewed, he would return. Do you know what he would do then?
No, Lord.
He would win, Abaddon. The bastard would win.
He has a talent.
I am the first to admit it. Only a fool ignores the advice of a brilliant man. Only an idiot denies the good practice of an enemy. I took up the habit. Intense moderation, as had been my way. But then short periods of withdrawal. He was right. The objective tactical clarity is astonishing.
Abaddon approached the table and looked down at the old chart. This is clarity.
It is. 16,486 individual engagements as of the last hour mark. Or 10,990 if we use his scale. His definition of battle differs from mine. I measure by 20,000 troops per element, he by 30,000. It's merely a difference in doctrinal tradition.
Abaddon stared at the map. The thick bolter shells, red-tipped and brass-collared, did more than weigh the map down. 4 stood upright, marking Lion's Gate Port, Eternity Wall Port, Gorgon Bar and Colossi Gate. Reduced to the most spare basics.
Yes. A paper chart with objects for markers. The old way.
No, I mean 16,000 plus reduced to 4. Perturabo had a bolter shell in his hands, toying with it.
Yes, those 4. They are the key to this phase. I keep considering placing this on Marmax.
He pointed with his shell to the area of the map between Gorgon and Colossi, in the interior Barbican.
Why are you here, Abaddon? I hope you have not come to impart some private instruction from your gene father, eh? Some whisper in my ear to do better and work faster? I don't want to hear it. Tell him I am accomplishing what he has tasked me to accomplish.
Lupercal is not aware of this visit, said Abaddon. Perturabo sat back, his brows knotted, intrigued. He studied Abaddon's face for some clue.
I'm curious. You have my attention.
Abaddon didn't reply. He reached over, picked up one of the bolter shells, and carefully placed it on the map, upright, just south of the ultimate wall. Then he stepped back, as though he had made a move in regicide, and was waiting for his opponent to respond.
The other day you were the only one to notice that, to even understand it. You like it, don't you?
So do you, Lord.
Yes, but I told you, we are committed. 4 key focus sites. Moreover, they satisfy the edicts of the War Master. They'll get the job done.
How quickly?
Faster than 2 months,
replied Perturabo, irritated.
This scheme works. The other is appealing. I will hold it in reserve.
It's more than appealing, said Abaddon. Abaddon looked around and spotted another broken cargo crate, drew it over and sat down without invitation. It's a flaw, a vulnerability.
He will have seen it.
What if he hasn't? Isn't it exactly the kind of error you're waiting for? The tiny oversight? It's the error you've been praying he will make.
Watch your mouth, son of Horus.
Abaddon raised a hand. But if it is, that flaw is the basis of a spear-tip assault. Done right, that would end this affair in a week. It would make this triumph yours. The triumph of Terra by your command. Not merely executed by you at my lord's behest. That's immortal glory. That's a place above all your brothers at the right hand of the new order.
I know what it is. Don't try your flattery on me. Tell me this. Why do you bring it to me?
Because I saw it. Because I want it. It's a military win. Perturabo began to smirk. He could at least detect the hidden fire behind Abaddon's eyes.
Oh, now I see it. You were always the warrior. A fine one, I'll confess. You want a piece of this glory too. You want to prove what you are. A soldier, not a child of the warp. An Astartes.
It's what I've always been. I won't lie. I want the glory. And I want to win it with the skill of my blade and the superiority of my troops. As I did in the old days. As I have always done. As an Astartes. That is how the compliance of Terra should come. That's what carried me here. And what carried you too.
Perhaps.
No perhaps about it. Tell me it wouldn't be sweet. For you, most of all, to settle the score brother against brother. You and him. Decided warrior against warrior.
I am going to win this, Abaddon. The rivalry will be decided in my favor at the last.
I know you're going to win. Eventually. Entirely. You will best dawn. But it's not the result. It's the means, surely. To beat him in his own terms. Astartes against Astartes. Military rules. True crafts of war pitched according to the games you played against him so many times. And too often lost.
I said watch your mouth.
I don't think I will. Because you know it's a fact. Beat him this way, and no one can deny your supremacy. No one can say, in the end the Lord of Iron won, not because he was better, but because he had the warp at his side.
You little bastard!
Perturabo stood up violently. Abaddon found himself a meter off the deck, his feet swinging, the hammer of Olympia's right hand gripping his throat. I sincerely apologize, Abaddon grunted, slowly choking. And take back any word I uttered that was not true, Abaddon grunted, slowly choking. Perturabo squeezed his grip more tightly. He was trembling with rage. With a sharp crack, one of Abaddon's collar seals began to buckle. The Lord of Iron spat in Abaddon's face, then threw him across the chamber like a discarded doll.
You'd have your rabble do this, would you?
Asked Perturabo, in a low, dangerous voice. Abaddon got up. He wiped the spittle from his cheek. It would please the Lupercal if his own loyal sons were the instrument of this attack.
I'm sure. A reason, but not a good enough one.
Then Perturabo, Lord of Iron, did the most terrible thing Abaddon would ever see him do. He smiled. Genetia Kroll felt the last of the armor segments slot into place. She felt Aphone place the last drabs of cloth over her shoulder. Genetia had given her instruction, and Aphone would make a great commander in her place. Besides, it is hard to miss someone no one notices. She sees Aphone look up, staring right into her face. Genetia cannot recall the last time someone looked at her so intensely. She studied the line and features of Aphone, as she did in turn. Genetia feels a wave of panic. Perhaps the dark truth of Dawn's orders is written on her features. The truth that has compelled her to do this. Aphone does not acknowledge it, even if she saw it, and Genetia is grateful. Aphone shakes out the folds of her cloak and smooths the fit across her shoulders. Then she embraces her. Genetia feels her body freeze. She is stunned. Neither of them are used to this. Contact with another. Connection. Only used to a life of being utterly alone. She returns the embrace. It is warm. It is tight. They embrace like frightened children, and it is a moment that feels timeless. Genetia thinks back to her entire life leading to this moment, and it is by far the most intimate, most profound moment of her life. Aphone steps back. Her hands say, "Come back." Genetia replies, "I will." She is a shadow striding through the quiet docking platforms. The servitors are uncabling her gunship when she notices Custodian Suotumo. He is standing on a wall's edge, and only when she is a few paces from him does he seem to react. "Why are you here, Prefect?" Genetia asks in thought mark. "I am compelled," he says. "Like you, I think. We are both party to the same sad secret." She finds it amusing that even though he is looking right at her, he's barely able to keep her in focus. "My mind has dwelt on the matter since then," he continues. "A certainty has formed. Compulsion," her hands finish. The last hiss of pressurized gas indicates the gunship's readiness. The Custodian and Silent Sister board the ramp together. The fate of all those at Eternity Spaceport theirs to share. Perhaps a fate unremembered, but no less important. Dawn signaled to his Huskal, and Cadwallader made his way to his lord's side. "My lord?" Cadwallader asked. Dawn quietly and quickly showed him the name on the list, and Cadwallader nodded. "You understand the..." "Sensitivity, yes, my lord," Cadwallader interrupted. The Praetorian leant in to whisper. "I would appreciate..." "I'll go and see if I can stop it, my lord," said Cadwallader. His fist clanged against his armor in salute. Cadwallader dismounted his jet bike, his optics whirring as they hunted to make a facial recognition match. The events of the council felt heavy in his chest as he passed through the mass of troops heading towards their doom at eternity. He spotted his quarry on a ramp of a Stormbird and made his approach. "My lord," he said, as Lord General Saul Nibran turned to face him. He wore a long storm cloak and the cap of his old regiment. "My worthy Lord Cadwallader?" he asked, frowning. "How can I help you?" Cadwallader hesitated. "General, there has been an error." Nibran smiled. "I was dismissed, Lord Huskal, removed from my post by the great Khan himself." "As I understand it," said Cadwallader, "it was a heated incident. You are a senior officer militant with great tactical insight, and a valued member of the Bastion's command cadre. It's very kind of you, Lord, but I won't be going back." "A clerical error," Cadwallader interrupted, but Nibran raised his hand. "I was done, Cadwallader. Honestly. 60 years of service. The last dozen without a weapon in my hand. It burns out the best of us, and I was burned out. I think it's time I remembered I was a soldier." Nibran's face became puzzled as he saw the expression on Cadwallader's face. "I'm sorry, General. You will come with me now." "Cadwallader, the port needs to be defended." "It's a priority." Cadwallader's voice could not hide his urgency. Finally, he leaned in and whispered the burden of necessary sacrifice. Nibiran sat down on a cargo crate. Well, not what I was imagining at all. I am flattered, truly, that Dawn thinks so highly of me. You can thank him yourself when Cadwallader began, when Nibiran reached out and clasped Cadwallader's armored hand. I have to go now, Cadwallader, he said. Do you think I can just disembark and watch these good men go on without me? Now I know what I know. Could you do that? Nibiran stood, defiant. I shouldn't have told you, said Cadwallader. Maybe not, but I'm strangely glad that you did. I know my worth, and I know the odds. Few commanders ever get that luxury. Thank you, Lord Cadwallader. Nibiran made his way to the Stormbird's seat. Have a good war, Lord Haskell. To your glory, and the glory of him on Terra. Cadwallader was silent, knowing he had lost his argument. He began to turn, and then halted. The compulsion stirred within his gut, until his legs began to move of their own accord. Cadwallader began to strap himself into the Stormbird next to Nibiran. What are you doing? Asked Nibiran. Coming with you, Cadwallader replied. The transports were old. There were 18, stuffed with men and women like cattle of an age long past. Harry couldn't help but wonder if the Judders would kill him before he even made it to the front lines. A man sat down beside Harry, spilling over into his seat, his gut giving his buttons enormous strain. Piers, he announced, offering his dirty hand. You're not a soldier, boy. No, I'm not, Harry replied. What are you doing here then? The man asked. He looked to Harry to be in his late 50s, overweight and solid, the exemplar of a veteran line trooper, sporting a hugely bushy, horseshoe mustache. Harry began to explain, wishing to delve into the burden of history at his fingertips. Oh, what's that name? Remembrances, said the trooper. Something like that, Harry responded. You're young. You haven't seen war, have you? Harry shook his head. The judgering travelling up his spine as the smell of rotten onions floated from the trooper's mouth. It's not nice, boy. You've served, have you? Harry asked. Served? Oh yes. Oh yes. Ollie Piers, Corporal, 105th Tertiary Upland Grenadiers. I've served my share. Dawngate, Helios Retreat. Course, that's where I lost the leg. Harry looked down at the definitely flesh and bone human legs. Your leg? He asked. Piers let out a roaring laughter. He enjoyed toying with the young and innocent. The bone-grinding Judders continued on, as a convoy pressed into the smoke and darkness. Harry peered through the thin slots in the transport shell, seeing the broken streets of Anteria. All life empty, all broken or on fire. He could smell the rain and the tar, Physaline and the exhaust. He saw the flashes of fire in the distance, and thought to the unrecorded history and the brutality in its depths. For 3 hours the convoy pushed on, as Trooper Piers slept through it all. Another 5 hours. The convoy came to a halt. A 10-minute rest, they were told, as the troopers scrambled off their carriers to flex their stiff joints, to urinate or empty the bottles they had urinated in along the way. Harry took out his data slate, noticing a copy of the Novitio Divinitatis had been placed within. His mind drew back to that unremarkable woman, deigning to think that perhaps there was more than meets the eye. You should be careful with that stuff, said Piers, standing over Harry. Get yourself into trouble, that stuff is banned. Harry noticed a fleck of sausage had got caught in the bristles of his moustache. Piers hacked off another slice, and offered it to Harry on the tip of his blade. Harry shook his head, thinking back on that same knife that had been used to clear the Grenadier's fingertips. Actually, it's not banned. The preaching of it is banned, but the belief is tolerated. You a believer then, boy? Asked Piers, his cheeks stuffed with sausage. No. Are you? He asked. Piers stopped chewing and swallowed. He wiped his mouth. A believer? That's a question and a half. Do I believe he is a god? The god? I don't know what any of that means. Is he high above us all, the master of mankind? Divine in his grace? Well, I have to believe so. Otherwise, what's the point in any of this? I'm from the uplands, boy, born and raised. Upland tertio. There's faith up there still, in a lot of places. Oh, don't give me that eye, boy. You know it. People have to believe. It's wired into them. They need it. That's my slant on the matter. They need it? Asked Harry, as the Grenadier nodded. We've always needed something, deep down. You do, I do, everyone. The faiths, the old religions of the back then days, well, they're all gone, erased. They were a crutch, so it's been said. One we didn't need. They were holding us back from our potential as a species. Harry lifted his slate and began to write, his suspicions of Keeler being the architect long falling away, rising to a new thought, that perhaps she simply tugged on the strings already within humanity. In the Grenadiers, when I joined up, we had a confraternity, just private, unofficial. We offered thanks for surviving battles and such to Mithras. Some say she was a god from a long, long time ago. A god who watched over warriors. It was the comfort we needed. The Emperor, is he a god? I don't know. Perhaps all we need is something to believe in. And he'll do. Piers got up, stretched robustly, and gleefully ripped the loudest, longest fart Harry had ever heard. Better out than in, he declared. Better out here than in there, said Harry, indicating to the transports. Do you hear the voices? Mortarion asked, turning slowly towards Ahriman, his bloated form writhed with pustules and maggots, as flecks of rust peeled off. No, Ahriman lied. I keep hearing voices, said Mortarion. Just the wind. Ahriman immaculately kept the disdain from his voice. The great accuser at Nicaea, Ahriman could not fathom how Mortarion could reconcile the walking contradiction he had become. Ahriman lied to him. He could hear them. He could hear their foul names on the etheric air. Balfalgora, Kabanda, Sakor Elech, and the loudest one of all, like an unending chorus. Samus is here. That's the only name you'll hear. Samus, it means the end and the death. Samus is all around you. Samus is the man beside you. Samus will gnaw on your bones. Look out, Samus is here. Stepping through a skeletal arch of light, the Crimson King graced their presence. His form was towering, decorated in ivory and jewels that glimmered in the battle's haze. His hair and skin matched his epithet, bright crimson with one eye socket simply empty. You are late, Mortarion wheezed. My brother, said Magnus. I am glad to see you, to stand with you. Ahriman could see the sneer on a sunken face through milky white eyes. Be at ease, brother, Magnus continued. Please, we are both yoked under the instruction from our brother Perturabo. We are to abide by his plan. Magnus stared out at the destruction before them. So, Colossi. Colossi, Mortarion barked. With your mighty strength and my qualities. We have no need of your qualities, the Pale King spat. I can crush this by myself. No doubt at all, said Magnus with a smile. But I go where I am sent. You seem so wary, brother. Surely our old disagreements are behind us? You bring that up, Mortarion wheezed. We stand together. The Lord of Iron has charged us with a task. We must be undivided. So let us take this moment to unburden ourselves of tiresome histories and reconcile, for things have changed. You and me. I say this, all of this, so that you may know I forgive you. You forgive me? Mortarion snarled. Ever that bitterness deep within was easy to call on. We are both now what you hated, Magnus continued. The Crimson King leant in close. It's unbearable, I know. The pain. Magnus left his statement unfinished. The physical could be endured, but it was the hypocrisy. Mortarion despised what he had become, equally when he relished in it. Mortarion's rotten face softened for a moment. I hate this, he whispered. I know, Magnus replied softly, placing his hand on his brother's shoulder. The Pale King flinched slightly, wary. I have had my gifts for a lot longer than you have, said Magnus calmly. Let me show you how they can be harnessed. Golden light emanated from Magnus's fingers as Mortarion began to stand taller. He felt the physical dullness retreat, and the vigor return to his milky white eyes. You are kind to me? He murmured, puzzled. Kindness more alien to him than his corruption. There is only one enemy now, said Magnus. Our Lie Father. And we face him side by side. Mortarion placed his hand upon his brother's, only for a moment, then set off down the slope. Compassion? Asked Ahriman. A temporary respite, Magnus replied. He let his brother leave with the lie, for it was not his quest of toppling their father, but the piece of himself behind those walls, and he needed his tools in working shape. The leading transport exploded in a shower of shrapnel and gore. A heartbeat later, Harry felt himself tumbling in the air. Troopers in the last 6 or 7 rows scrambled and fell out into the open. Harry felt his blood go cold, hearing the screams of those still on fire. Ollie Piers strode out, his Plaz Cavalier in one hand and Harry in the other. He threw Harry within meters of the hatch and fell to his knees, his mustache singed. Piers and Harry scrambled, the Grenadier yelling down to the men further down the column. We're sitting bloody ducks, you shitting simpletons! Piers roared, as a Grenadier and Remembrancer sprinted. More volleys of missiles began to slam into the now stagnant targets. Harry's legs felt like dead weights as he scrambled after Piers, Eternity Spaceport in the distance. It was a vast, beautiful superstructure, towering into the permanent night, silent and massive like an alpine range. Piers pulled Harry behind the rubble, unclipping his old auto pistol and holding it out to him. What? Harry bleated. Do you know how to shoot one, boy? Piers asked. You know I don't. Harry panicked. Bloody take it anyway, the Grenadier snapped, as both turned to the shadows growing in the dust. Hulking figures emerged, their forms loping, juttering in foul and definitely not human. With a whooping cry to his war mistress Mithras, Piers began to fire, scorching beams searing the unreal flesh of demons. Trusty old Best in Piers's hand roared, grenade munitions obliterating forms as the tide was almost upon them. Harry didn't know if he was screaming. His arms were wrapped around Pierce's legs, his form shaking as the impending claws and teeth were about to rip them apart. A cleaving whistle passed them as Harry raised his head, looking to see Pierce's astonishment. Before them, almost too fast for the eye to follow, a blur of gold was amongst the demonic beasts. Its cuts were precision incarnate. "A bloody custodian, boy," Pierce said, and then began to laugh. "A talon of the Emperor himself! Balls to glory, look at him kill!" The Grenadier let Harry go, as he got to his knees and began to clap and cheer, as though it were a performance just for him. Custodian Suotumu was a god amongst men, the tally of his guardian's spear endlessly rising, as the demons halted, then whimpered at the shape behind him. The loping forms ran, disappearing back into the haze of dust. "Are you alive?" asked the custodian, his voice like a lead weight wrapped in silk. "How many of you are alive? Trooper, make a count." Harry rose, attempting to speak, until Pierce flung himself to the floor, screaming to the high throne his praise of Mithras. Harry looked to where Pierce had based himself, only perceiving a greasy smear of light. Then an impression, for a brief second, of hands moving, forming quick shapes. "Yes," said the custodian. "It would appear he can see you." Genetia Kroll frowned. Two blades were laid out in candlelight. The makeshift private quarters felt like a dark reflection of the spirit to Loken, a man who had lost near everything. His brothers, his friends, his legion. And now the hour had come when his father had returned to the birthplace of humanity. "Kneeling is an act of respect or fealty," the woman's voice said. "Or it is an act of reverence and devotion." "It's not devotion," Loken replied. "There are no gods. We burned that lie." He examined the hilt of Rubio's foresword, the ultramarine crest on its hilt, and its dull force edge. "Then, fealty? But there was no one here to kneel to, so the fealty is worthless," the woman interjected. "The Emperor is everywhere," Loken replied, annoyed. "Is he?" the woman asked, amused. "You kneel to the idea of him as an act of faith? So which is it? Fealty or devotion? Have you destroyed false gods just to build another?" "He is not false," Loken barked, the vibrations lifting the dust. "There are demons now, so," Loken breathed. "So there must be gods." "I didn't say that." "What do you want?" Loken took a deep breath again. "What do you want, Mercedes?" "To live. Too late for that," the ghost replied. Loken turned away, finishing the inked script of his oath of moment. It had begun as a chant, a defiance, graffiti across the breaking ruins of the palace. And now it was his promise. "To the death," said Loken, to a friend no longer here. "Gabriel," the psychic intrusion said. "I am occupied, Lord," Loken replied. "Evade, sidestep, swing, left blade, decapitation." "So I witness it, warrior. What is your tally today?" asked Malkador. 18. Turn, adjust, block, block again. Right blade, under the guard, impale. 19. "I need to speak with you, Gabriel." The sigilized voice echoed again in his mind. The section of wall had been assaulted since dawn, and Gabriel Loken, the last lunar wolf, was remiss to abandon it. He lowered his chainsword, and Rubio's psychic blade, its edge devoid of its usual light. Loken, your efforts on the wall have been tireless. I commend you, especially for your efforts to rally and coordinate the common army units. I have no legion to stand with, Sigillite. What you call common army are my brothers now. The service I require is specific, continued Malkador. It speaks directly to your vengeance, and it comes directly from the Praetorian. Loken stepped to the tower's edge, peering down at the traitor forces scaling the walkway. He raised his chainsword and Rubio's blade again. I'm listening, he said, as he leapt down into the fray. The War Master's equerry Argonis approached the Mournival. It had not gone beyond notice. The movements of the War Master's most trusted sons, Tormageddon, Falcus Kyber, Horus Aximand, Abaddon, even Goshen and Tybalt Mar had been sequestered. What is this, Ezekiel? Argonis pressed, turning to face one of the burrowing engines being loaded with equipment. An opportunity has arisen, Abaddon replied. Perturabo likes it very much, and so do I. But it will stall and fail if word gets around, if people get involved. People? Argonis asked. You mean him? He has a way of dominating situations, Abaddon replied. Of making them his own. Argonis nodded. I'm amazed he hasn't dropped yet to join the brawl and lead the way. It's not like him. He's still on the spirit, asked Abaddon. He is? Argonis nodded. Almost in seclusion. Withdrawn. I don't know what to make of it. Perhaps he wants to use his brothers, and all of us as cannon fodder to topple the walls, interjected little Horus. Then just, stroll in across our corpses and take the prize. These days, Argonis breathed out. I wouldn't put anything past him. He's not himself. I don't know what he's becoming, or where his mind is. Argonis stopped, unsure whether to speak his weak thoughts into truth. Would they judge him for it? Or worse, agree? What? Asked Abaddon. Kainor, if there's a problem, I need to know it more than anyone. What could he say? Argonis thought. The equerry of the Primarchs sat down and began his recalling of how he found their lord with tomes and books he had never seen given, written in language that hurt to gaze upon. I cannot see him this way, withdrawing, alone. He doesn't recognize our Legion trophies. Sometimes he calls me Malagust. Kainor, said Abaddon, slowly, straightening up. I need you to keep this confidential. Keep it away from his eyes until we're done. What he doesn't know can't trouble him. The dread in Abaddon's gut, mixed with the seas of suspicions he had felt since Davin. Is this truly Horus? Is his father in control, or being controlled? Argonis' eyes widened as Abaddon showed him the projection. 3 Dojon Siege-class engines, alongside artillery directed against Europa and the western projection. Abaddon, you're out of your mind. 3 companies. Even our best won't be enough to break them. Argonis spluttered, until Falcus Kyber stopped him. Argonis' eyes widened again, seeing the true assault and the weakness beneath Saturnine. Not this one, said Custodian Amon. Though Keela was exhausted, her curiosity piqued. He's next, she replied. Not this one, Amon said bluntly again. Skip this one. Keela frowned. Today I have spoken, in turn, to some of the most unpleasant individuals ever sired by the human race. I told you Sinderman's entire effort was misjudged, Amon interjected. Yet Keela would not budge. She was a mortal who had seen the rise and banishment of a demon, the treachery of the War Master with her own eyes. There was very little left in the universe to frighten Keela, Amon thought. Keela took the data slate from his hand as he reluctantly opened the door. Keela stepped within the dark hold, reading the details on her slate. Basilius Foe, secured 15 years ago, biomechanical engineer. She turned to Amon in curiosity. A transfer from the Imperial dungeon? She asked quizzically. The dungeon was getting too full, said Foe. Or too empty. They didn't tell me which. I would imagine the former. Keela read the slate again, and it was believed to be true. The man with unblinking eyes before her was over 5,000 years old. That must be a mistake. Surely, Keela said to him. Active on Terra before the fall of Old Night. Foe shrugged. What can I say? I look after myself, and exercise regularly. Keela examined his scrawny, ancient features, but was under no doubt that there was a secret strength within. Foe looked away. Is he here? There are terrible noises coming from the outside. Who? Asked Keela. Lupercal, I had presumed you'd all finally come to your senses, and decided to ask me for my expert advice? Keela inquired, as Foe's features twisted into a face designed to show sympathy. Yet Keela had no doubt hid the twisted malice. About how you might kill him. Kill who? Keela asked. Lupercal, Foe breathed. Why have you summoned us here? Sinderman asked. Deep below the Saturnine wall, the clandestine group arrived at a cellar vault, or perhaps an old water cistern. Drained, it was warm and damp like a cave. The warriors parted to reveal the Praetorian, dropping his head as he entered the room. Theriomus, the young remembrancer at Sinderman's side, fell to his knees. I have brought you here for a specific reason, Dawn said. I brought you here so you might see what you have put into my mind, and observe the consequence. For it may be the saving of us. I am honored, my lord, said Sinderman. You are at risk, Dawn interjected. This place will fall in harm's way, and I cannot guarantee your safety. Sinderman shrugged. Terra is besieged, Lord. You cannot guarantee the safety of any of us. Dawn nodded, accepting the biting truth. With dust shaking in each step, the iron form of Dreadnought Bohemond rumbled into the quarters, and beside him a figure that looked even smaller next to the venerable ancient. Theriomus began to tremble, as Sinderman bowed to Malcador the Sigillite. Sinderman listened intently, as Malcador and Dawn spoke of the weakness below Saturnine, and the likely enemy gambit to exploit it. For that to work, you would send your best, Sinderman voiced in disbelief. Not just elite, specialists. Spear-tip assault to cut through. His eyes widened. Now he is getting it, the Sigillite murmured. Now he understands. Throne of all, Sinderman whispered. You're laying a trap to kill the Lupercal. It hadn't been difficult for Harry to get the soldiers to give their stories. Perhaps there was little else in this war. My name is Joseph, said the soldier. He leaned his rifle against the wall and sat down. Harry had seen a plethora of haunted faces, yet in this latest group an inner fire glinted in their terrified eyes. Joseph Bacco Monday, 18th Regiment, Nordafric Resistance Army. Every soldier Harry had spoken to had done the same. The habit had seemed to have spread. The sounds of gunfire never ceased. The skies were permanent night. But Harry enjoyed speaking to Joseph, though he had a feeling he was about to hear the same story. "There was a convoy coming here," said Joseph. "Reinforcements for the port defense, like the one that brought you." "I'm sure," Harry agreed. "It was attacked," Joseph continued, unable to keep the smile from his face as he spoke of a lone trooper. A man who fought with the strength of 20. How the trooper's faith in the Emperor was rewarded. That perhaps the master of mankind had answered his prayers, and had descended down on angel wings and annihilated their enemies. "Was the soldier's name Piers?" Harry asked. Joseph glanced at him in surprise. "You've heard it?" he asked. "Versions," said Harry. "I'm sure the various versions contain the truth of the story. You see, there's your mistake," Joseph interjected. "That's the thing about stories. There's truth in all of them." Harry kept writing. "Can I ask you a question?" Harry asked. "The way you're talking about the Emperor, it makes him sound as a divine presence? A spiritual power?" Joseph's features turned dark. Images flashed before him. Death beyond count. His Lord Camberdius, and the monstrous world eaters that had been beaten into the mud. "I have heard there's a book," Joseph said meekly. "A secret book. A text explaining the divinity of the Emperor. I would like to read that book, but I do not need to read it to know the truth. This war, all this fighting and killing, there would be no sense if the Emperor was just a man." Harry did his best to show no expression on his face. "So, he has to be a god because you have faith in him?" asked Harry. "Faith is all we have," said Joseph. "I have not read this book. I have not seen angels or the demons that they say have come. I do not need to." Both Harry and Joseph stood, as the sound of battle grew louder. The enemy were coming. They were coming for eternity. Piers dragged Harry into a trench. Enemy munitions had begun spitting overhead, as a line of tanks roared towards the advancing lines. "Oh, the front is no place for you," Piers growled, loading grenades into old Bess. "It wasn't the front line until just now," said Harry. "Oh, shut your smart mouth," Piers snapped. "I hear you've been telling stories about yourself," said Harry. "Oh, what? Oh, piss off. Soldiers talk. You, the mythical soldier, standing alone before the grace of the Emperor. And how is that not what happened?" Piers smiled, interjecting. Harry tried to speak again, until Piers interrupted. "It doesn't matter, boy. It's about whatever keeps you going. One more step. That's how you live. That's how you win. That's how you survive. And how your friends and your comrades come back with you. So you can tell all your glory tales afterwards. And make even more bull to get you through the shitstorms to come." Piers dragged Harry, as the two belly crawled down the trench line. The sound of bombardment ceaseless, as the pings of small arms sparked around them. They kept crawling, until witnessing 5 men holding a banner of the Emperor ascendant, defiant on a sunburst background. Harry and Piers peered over the trench, witnessing the horde moving faster than any man approaching. "Oh, balls," Piers whispered. Diaz strode to the front of the pond solar bridge, then left from the emplacement onto the ramp. Stray and loose enemy shots spat past, as he unsheathed his blade. He carved a line into the rockcrete. "Mark this!" he yelled to his men. "This far, and no further. We stop them here." A chorus of 1,000 voices answered their lord. A wall of cries emanated towards them, shrieks of pain at their core. Diaz couldn't help but think of a stampede of wild animals. The swollen forms of the world eaters loped towards the wall of fire that dragged down their numbers. Amongst them came other horrors, baying never-born spawn that ran like hyenas, or tottered like biped goats and rams. Loping hybrids of man and ether, as the defenders of Pon Solar never stopped firing, the enemy almost upon them. Madness creeped closer with each corpse, as Diaz unloaded his pistol in his lord's name. Reckless hate was approaching. His iron discipline steeled Diaz and his brothers. He felt the flow state wash over his form, an inner core that could never be breached, the essence of his Primar pumping from his heart to his fingertips. It anchored him like extreme gravity. It locked Belmiel and Theus Rius in place too, pinning them as though time around them had unhinged and become a psychotic blur that permitted no skill. Diaz stood in the name of his Lord Dawn, unmoving as his shield caught the first berserker's blow. It sparked as he sliced from throat to hip, the World Eater's body slumping in two. His blade cut and cleaved through a Neverborn, blood arcing. In his Lord's name he smashed his shield into the face of another World Eater, shattering his neck, punching his longsword through another helm as a bolt round shattered on his plate. Diaz gutted and eviscerated, carving another as a glancing blow shattered his ribs. He sent a World Eater careening over his shield as he brought his hard edge down on another helm, pulverizing the skull in his Lord's name. Blood sheeting his armor, he felt his left leg gored by a chainsword. He returned the blow in kind, cleaving a World Eater through both his legs, in his Lord's name. He rammed his blade through another, even as the berserker kept screaming. He slammed his fist into his face, broken teeth flying as a blade stabbed into his side. He saw the headless form of Theus Rius, his fingers stuck upon his rotary cannon trigger as it slumped to the ground. With the snapped blade of his long sword, Diaz rammed it into his brother's killer. Focus, absolute focus in the name of his lord. Blood flying, bone snapping, flesh tearing impacts. Collapses, swinging, striking, pinned. The name of Dawn. Frenzy, glory, Diaz, smoke blind, blood blind, striking again, Camber Diaz. Thrusting, cutting, gutting, striking, slaying, in the name of his lord. Camber Diaz slumped into a line in the rockcrete, not one step taken back. Harry's life was flashing before his eyes. He was still so young. He smelt his grandfather's cooking. He saw the notes-lace stylus his aunt had given him when she had heard he wanted to be a writer. He saw himself, full of potential, a young man beaming at the side of the famous iterator Sinderman. From a voice that should have spoken the histories of the Grand Imperium, it was a mewling mess. He was crawling in the mud and blood, trying to control his bowels. Piers slapped him hard. "Move your feet!" the Grenadier yelled into his face. How foolish he had been, Harry thought. How high and mighty he had thought his own beliefs. That one could debate on gods and lies in this galaxy-ending war. This wasn't war. This was an apocalypse. It was a punch in the face, as mortals relied on every resource to live. Lies were simply that. Resources. Harry had been sent here to record history. He would never live to tell that war was never worth any experience. There was no courage, no great deeds, nothing to cherish. War was noise, sensory overload, pain, terror, and horror. And that was it. It was an obscenity that couldn't be communicated. And even if it could, it shouldn't be. The sky was swarmed in fire. Eternity was burning. Cacophonous boom shook through Harry's form, as he saw the loping World Eaters darting through the smoke, killing indiscriminately. "I have to get you out of here, boy. We can't stay here," Piers growled into his ear. "You're lying again," said Harry. "You want to get out of here, and helping the non-combatant idiot is a good excuse." Piers slapped him again. "Let's just go. Run. No lies, just go." Piers turned and made to leave. Crossfire had mowed across the trench ahead, and the Emperor Ascendant, the banner, had fallen. 3 of its bearers were dead, and the remaining 2 were trying desperately to get it upright, but the task was beyond them. Or we could do something, Harry said. He sprinted, clasping his hands around the banner pole as he began to heave. Another set of hands joined them. As to Harry's surprise, he looked up and saw Piers. Screaming into the hail of violence, Harry recognized another, the weeping yet steady Joseph Bacomunde adding his strength. More and more flocked to the only landmark, as the banner of the Emperor stood defiant. "We're all dead," someone wailed. "Shut up your noise, we're not," Piers bellowed. "He will protect us. He protects us. Show a little bloody faith, boys, and gather around him." The Throne of Terra chant raised, as Harry joined in with them, their voices a lone chorus in the smoke. A battle cry rose out. The bridge upon Solar had fallen, and the enemy was pouring into eternity. Through the smoke, Harry saw true horror, the bloated form of a World Eater. The chant began to falter. "He will protect us," Piers yelled. "He will, boys, if we protect him." The huddled group began to fire, as the World Eater, with a grinning maw more reminiscent of a beast, loped towards them. The gleaming Zweihander veracity cleaved through immaterial muscle, as Genetia ploughed through the goat-like creatures before her. She was running, passing through the demonic horde with ease, as they cowed and whined from her presence. She looked to the only feature left visible to her, her lord, the Emperor gleaming upon a banner, a gathering of soldiers beneath it, punching munitions into the smoke. She spotted a single World Eater, pounding towards them, chain axe raised and blood flecking off his form, as an ear-splitting howl radiated from its maw. Kardag Edi. Her visor registrated. A giant horror, a skull taker, trophies of human bone and skin strung around his plate, like fetishes and leather aprons. He was much larger, far stronger and faster than her. But she had one advantage. She could see Kardak. The World Eater was closing the gap, and fast. The soldiers were screaming and crying at the same time. As 5 meters from them, the Berserker's contorted face changed, as if he sensed a wrongness in the universe. Almost breaking her elbows, Genetia plunged Rasti through his face, the momentum of the course plunging it up, sending it crashing before the banner and its protectors. "The spirit of Mithras is among us, boys!" the man before the banner bellows. A sea of white and red armor stepped out, hints of amber along with the gold of the Emperor's guardians. Within the trench line of the Colossi gate, dismissed from Gorgon Bar, Commander Konas Burr felt his sweat run cold, his collar too tight, as the Primarch Jagatai Khan, First Captain Ralderon and Custodian Valdor looked to him. "It is my honor, lords," Burr said. "With respect, I'd rather strip bare naked and charge those bastards alone than give any of you threes an order." The Khan's eyebrows rose. Then he bellowed out a laugh. Valdor smiled. Even Ralderon, the quietest of them, glanced aside to disguise his smirk. "You are a good man, Burr," said the Khan. The rolling dark clouds towards Colossi were beginning to thin. The Khan turned to the Chief Custodian. "Tell me Rogol didn't send you, friend Constantine," said the Khan. "Tell me Rogol didn't dispatch you to Colossi, to keep an eye on his brother, the unruly Khan and his capricious notions." "I have lived my life in secrets," replied Valdor simply. "But I have never lied lies." Of course he did. Jagatai knew of Rogol's ploys, of his so-called placating of his barbarian brother. Let him think that, he thought. Let his brother believe it, for the Praetorian was the master of this grand strategy. Give him the illusion of control that he needed, for much else was beyond them. The shapes began to coalesce, the lost and the damned, and the Death Guard lines slow and bloated like the very disease that played host in their frames. The mortal trench line of colossi remained, as the legionaries and custodians wordlessly joined the advance of the Khan. A wash of bolter fire sent spouts of blood, pus and metal shearing back, as like a trident, 3 spear tips behind the Khan, Raldoron and Valdor punched into the enemy line. What began as a slashing of dows, chainswords, gleaming spears and rusted axes, descended into a compressed slough of bodies, blood and corpses piling as the loyalist charge folded into the mass. As quick as it began, the forces of the 14th split, as the sound of thunderous hooves emerged from the smoke. Mutated, loping Neverborn the size of Titans smashed into the gaps, sending loyalists tumbling. From a distant crest, Ahriman lowered his hands, trembling with the effort of his heresy. He looked to the Pale King, watching the horror unfold below. "They ride out," said the Pale King. Mauritania in old Terra, they had called it. A land of harsh deserts and even harsher sun. But it was the Earth Lodge outbuilt with carved stone that had brought John Grammaticus here. Here at the time when the birthplace of humanity was under siege. It had once belonged to a people called Berber, or Barbaros, a word for outsider just like barbarian. What were they called now? Amzir? Free men? It didn't matter. He had not come to find a people. He had come to find her. Yet the cold muzzle on the back of his neck told him otherwise. "I'm armed, but I'm not dangerous," said John, trying to sound cheerful. "You can take my gun." Whoever stood behind John already had. "You're not armed," said the voice, "but you're definitely dangerous. I know who you are, John Grammaticus. Mercenary, outcast, rogue, pariah, agitator, agent of Xenos, perpetual, to some degree, by any measure dangerous. I haven't been those things for a long time, though I confess I have been most of them. A record that shames me. It would shame the devil," said the voice. John turned slowly and stared down the barrel of an antique bolter, a legionary at his other end in prime steel plate, an inscription of LE2 on his torso. "I need to see her," said John. Marshal Agatha felt the still wet blood on her pin. Her friend, poor Konos Burr, and thousands of others lie dead, their corpses ground to a pulp as the last of the towering demons retreated or fell. The wall guns of Colossi gored and blasted the titanic beasts as they broke the last of the outer trenches. She looked to the great Khan. Even mites crawled upon his skin and face. She felt better for having a living demigod at their side, and lamented that even they too suffered in the face of such evil. The Kagan was with his council of Stormseers, whose complexion had turned grey, as if the essence of their lives were drained by what they faced. "The Pale King's 14th drives at us all," said Raldoron, coming to stand beside her. "But the etheric tribulation we are enduring is not their work. The damned sons of Magnus work some black art in support of them." "The 1,000 Sons," she whispered. "We are damned then." "They are damned, Agatha," said Raldoron. "We are merely doomed." Agatha looked around at her exhausted men and women, most coughing into their gas masks. It would do no good. The sickness was not a material infection. She saw half a dozen being dragged away and weeping. The beasts were gone, Yet it was the creeping silence that brought the dread, even in her. Atop the colossi wall she peered through her lenses, at the enormous silhouettes on the horizon, trudging, shifting. 3 Stormseers joined her and First Captain Ralderon, and she couldn't help but notice how the flies died when touching their armor. "Let me back in," the whispers came, in the voice of Conus. She froze. "You heard him?" she asked to Ralderon. The First Captain lifted the scope to his helm lens. "If there's a chance he's alive," she murmured. Ralderon stopped her. Looking at the milky white eyes of the corpse, staring back at him from the trench's mire. They were 300 meters up, far beyond mortal perception, and that's how Ralderon knew he was dead. Agatha felt her heart tighten, as the Stormseers began to fan out. Harry approached Joseph Bacomonde, the tears still streaming from his face. He had seen his angel fall, Lord Camber Diaz, surrounded by a horde of corpses, having not taken one step back. Joseph, through the sniffles, lifted his head. "Do you think what happened to us at the Banner was a miracle?" he asked Harry. "What do you think, my friend?" said Harry. "I think there are miracles everywhere, all around us, all the time. We just have to see them, know to recognize them, and have the faith to believe in them. If we believe, we make them happen." Harry opened his note slate, pinning his way to the copy of the Levicio Divinitatis. "Share that with as many people as you can," said Harry. "I think there's a strength in it, and I know we need all the strength we can get." Harry stood, and made his way towards the myth happening before his eyes. He found Piers surrounded by half a dozen. The Grenadier was scrubbing the dirt from the banner of the Emperor Resplendent. Harry took out a new slate. "What's Ollie short for?" he asked. Piers's face wrinkled, as if catching a ripe scent. "Why, boy?" he replied. "I'm writing your story," said Harry. "I wanted to get your name right." "I don't have a story," Piers rumbled, and went back to scrubbing. "Is it Oliver? Olaf? Oleander?" Snickers of laughter rose around them. It was a welcome relief from the constant weeping. "If you must know, it's Alanius." There was a pause. Then a chorus of laughter. "That's an old fart's name. A grandad's name." Belia Grossia, 3rd Helvet Regiment, said. "But it was my granddaddy's as it happens," Piers protested. "It's an old family name. A good uplander name. Stop bloody laughing." He looked up at Harry. "Oh, don't bloody write it down, boy," he pleaded. As the laughter rose into the night, unbeknownst to all, even the Grenadier, the smudge in the corner stood up. Genetia would have liked to talk to the young man. She felt his endeavour was worthwhile. She had so many stories to tell, perhaps even her own. But it was clear that her story would never make history. Genetia moved out of the ruins, and resolved for the next engagement on the horizon. "Brothers," said Eidolon, his voice a strange blend of vile harmonics. The 1st, 18th and 2nd companies of the Sons of Horus were ready. Oaths of moment given, their blood pumping in anticipation for the greatest spear tip in their legion's history. The enormous siege drills began their whirring. The mournful greeted Eidolon, the look of disdain barely hidden except on Abaddon's face. "You kept us waiting," said Abaddon. "Not polite," said Kyber. "My manners are impeccable," Eidolon replied, his throat inflating and deflating like an amphibian. "Were you persuasive?" Aximand asked. I am always persuasive, Eidolon replied. I have been silver-tongued. It looks blue, said Aximand. What strength? Abaddon interjected, and Eidolon's reply brought them to stunned silence. All of them. He had brought his entire legion. From the lines of ivory and pink warriors behind Eidolon, a larger silhouette emerged. One with porcelain skin that ran liquid until ornate armor flourished. Brushing aside strands of silvery hair, Fulgrim looked to the Mournival, as the sons of Horus fell to one knee, not in honor, but to avoid the lethal gaze of the demon Primarch. Saturnine wore. The cellar's dry air filled Sinderman's lungs, as he, Dawn and Malkador looked to the warriors entering the space. Each one was in full battle plate, unhelmed. The cost of war not written upon their faces, but sheer determination. Maximus Thane, Imperial Fist, captain of the 22nd Company Exemplar, a long-hearted warhammer resting across his right shoulder. Halig Gallo, once of the Death Guard, his plate now the somber grey of the Knights Errant. Bel Sepetus, Blood Angel, a captain paladin of the Cruvium host, his tri-faced emblem gleaming on the chest of his crimson cataphracti armour. The massive Endridhar, the Riven Hound, World Eater turned Black Shield outcast, his power fist as soot dark as the plate he wore. Beside him emerged Nathaniel Garrow, former battle captain of the 7th Grade Company of the Death Guard, sporting his Knights Errant colours too, a paragon bolter clamped to his hip, the ancient broad-blade Libertas braced across his pauldron. Sigismund, First Lord Captain of the Templar Brethren, his artificer plate the black of that order, badged in yellow, his blade clamped to his wrist with chain, and last of all, Garviel Loken, former Knight Errant and last Lunar Wolf, Rubio's dead sword strapped to his waist, a long patterned chain blade suspended in his hand. History unfolded before Sinderman, as he began his recording of the most pivotal action of the war thus far, the Saturnine Gambit. Dawn looked to the champions assembled before him, each peerless warriors, yet his eyes lingered on the ivory white plate, bearing a symbol he had not seen in a long time.
I notice that you have chosen to sweep your own deceptions away. Or is this just more deceit?
Loken glanced down at himself.
I have always been a Lunar Wolf, my lord. Loyal to the death. I want them to see that as they die.
Oh yes, muttered Gallo. Dawn stared at Loken and nodded gently.
Your livery, Captain, once represented the best of us. I hope it will again. I'm running the siege. I have been from the beginning, at every hour, at every moment, wherever I go and whatever I do. This will be no different. And like me, Archimus can multitask. The Grand Borealis is efficient and well prepared. The tacticians and the War Court offer fulsome support, as they have since day one. My dear brother does not need to be informed yet. You know as well as I do how occupied he is at Gorgon Bar.
You are the foundation of our defense, the architect of our fate. Is it wise to risk you by placing you at the forefront of a known flaw in this fortress? Said Thane.
Indeed,
said Sigismund.
at a place where the very worst of our enemy is fully expected to stream in and unleash fury?
I've done my utmost to make this palace a true fortress. I've built it from the ground up, diligently, some say obsessively, making sure that it is impenetrable and secure. But that is an impossible task. There will always be cracks. There will always be flaws. No fortress of mere stone and steel in our galaxy is truly impervious. So I must place myself directly before those cracks and block them with my own flesh and fury.
He gazed at them steadily.
I am the fortress now.
Sinderman shivered. The hairs on his neck stood up.
Now, each in turn, make your oaths of moment to me.
There wasn't an opportunity to speak earlier, but I wanted to find you before,
said Sinderman.
You found me.
Loken straightened up. He held out his hand. Sinderman clasped the giant armored paw gingerly. They were in Deployment Hall 6, close to the assayed line of the floor. The chamber was a brick cistern, a basement vault extended by servitor teams who had drilled out the sub-rock. Behind Loken, his team were assembling, weapons ready. 100 legionaries, most of them Imperial fists. It was quiet, but for a few low conversations, and the clack and snap of magazines slotting and power feeds connecting. There was a suspended hush that reminded Sinderman of a temple or a place of worship. A congregation assembled in prayer, the closest equivalent these days, he reflected. One wall of the chamber had been removed, and they could see through the neighbouring deployment hall, Hall 7. Sigismund and his kill team were prepping there quietly. Another 100 men, also Imperial fists. But these marched with the black and charcoal of the Templar Order. The 7 kill teams had been given call signs, as Sinderman understood it. Sigismund was devotion, Garrow was strife, Har was black dog, Bel Sepetus was brightest, Galor was 7th, and Thane was Helios. Loken's was Naismith.
It seems an age ago when I last saw you in those colors.
A different age, Kirill.
Quite so. You think of them as your true colors?
Always. But I'm expecting them to provoke some psychological effect.
I'm sure. And your choice of call sign.
A word you taught me. I intend to disagree and challenge. The balance has gone, Kirill. We need Naismiths more than ever.
Do you think our Praetorian is correct? That he's coming?
I think there's a high probability. And if not my gene sire, then the best spear tip in the legions for an undertaking like this.
They don't exist anymore.
They do, as a twisted parody of that glory.
First Company, the Mournival, Abaddon. Names that were always terrifying, no matter which side you were on.
Back then, there was only one side. You are here to make an account of this, Kirill. A remembrance? I was puzzled by your presence.
I am. Just a twisted parody of the old order, to borrow your turn of phrase. But Lord Dorn has seen fit to reinstate us, to recall the making of history as an act of faith in a future that...
You make the history, Kirill. I'm only here to make a mound of corpses.
Sinderman paused awkwardly.
If he is coming, what will you do, Gaviel? He was your beloved master once, and...
Kill him. I'll kill him.
Sinderman nodded.
History tells us that a future may be in morbid decline when sons turn on their fathers.
My father turned on me. I don't need history to tell me anything.
There you are, damn it. Sinderman turned. Conroy Captain Alborn was hurrying towards him, trailed by 2 Horde troops in red body armor.
I might have slipped my handlers.
You don't find the things you're looking for if you don't break some rules. You have to walk in a few dark places on your own.
You can't just wander around, sir. Alhorn was snapping at Sinderman. Do this again and we'll eject you. Come, please. There's a space reserved for you in the command post. Sinderman allowed himself to be walked away. He looked back at Loken.
Find what you're looking for, Gabriel. Wherever it is in those dark places.
I'll find it and illuminate it.
Loken called out after him. They marched Sinderman out. Loken turned back to his preparation. He took up Rubio's sword and resumed working the edge on a whetstone.
I can find you a better sword than that old blade.
Sigismund had approached from the neighbouring hall.
And chain it to my wrist like a world-eater.
Then it may never leave your hand, Garviel Loken. You never, ever have to put it down again.
This'll do. It's been with me a while, and it belonged to someone.
It's a force weapon,
said Sigismund dubiously.
A brother like you can't bring the best out of it.
It's still a blade, and its edge is good.
They stood together and looked at the two chambers. The quiet men assembled, braced to unleash hell.
Are you set?
Yes. You?
Yes. I liked your oath.
The shortest one of them all.
Yes, but a good one. I wish it had been mine.
Quadruped Titans shuddered the ground as 3 Dojon engines, relics of the Dark Mechanicum, strode towards the Saturnine wall, their visage altered by the touch of the Phoenician. Inspired acoustic nightmares whispered by the Neverborn masked the approach of the bulk engines in sonic fields that turned the air opaque and wrapped the Dojon in manufactured night from 30 kilometers away. From the haze, the mortal defenders finally saw the dark truth, as the Saturnine wall guns came alive in fire. A barrage of munitions pounded against the Dojon shields, as a horde of vehicles, decorated in finery and tortured souls, followed in its midst. A kilometer out, the enormous transports dropped their shields, and reeking fire began to tear into them. But it was too late. The transports and drop pods exploded out from their falling carcasses, and the Emperor's children emerged on the wall top. Purple, gold, pink, black. Their armors kaleidoscopes of sickly colors. They emerged screaming their death hymns, and blasting their weapons at shattered eardrums and ground meat. Scores of amber armor poured out of gun nests to meet their vile cousins. Booming blasts of jets hailed the graceful landing of more, and others simply strode out of cuts in reality. The menacing, oversaturated wall of color marched in perfect stride as the screams began. One last pod, wrought in heliotrope and aramanthine and etched in gold, rocketed down to the very wall's center, emerging with a beauty too terrible to behold. Fulgrim stepped out onto the blood-flecked rockcrete, smiling at the devastation before him. Horus Aximan looked to the legionaries strapped in around the chamber. The faces of veterans are newly elevated, one such as Lev Goshan. The vibrations of the drill sang through his form, making his teeth ache. But it was the breath on his neck, the shadow at the edge of sight, that was his true discomfort. All Voss Communique was blocked by the sheer density of the churning rock around them. Abaddon, Tormageddon, even Tybalt Mar was beyond his reach. And what good would communications have done him? What would he say? That since his blade Monitor had cut down the real Torgaddon, he had felt darkness in his dreams. The breath on the back of his neck. The face of a once friend long dead haunting him. The face of Loken. The commanders of Kill Team Helios and Devotion, Thane and Sigismund, took the news Dawn spoke poorly. "Are we abandoning this strategy?" Sigismund asked. "No," said Dawn. "But we are obligated to adjust. Assemble your teams, and follow me to the wall top." The assault of the entire 3rd Legion had forced the adaptation, and so far it demonstrated none of the finesse of Perturabo. This was of Fulgrim's design. Sigismund's venom crept to the surface. This is the very prize we— "Lose that tone, Sigismund," said Dawn. "Fulgrim brings his entire host. Unchecked, they could break the ultimate wall. Is that something you would allow?" "No," said Sigismund. "Is Fulgrim a distraction, Lord?" asked Thane. "You told us you anticipated a wall-face assault as a distraction." "If he is a distraction bigger and bolder than anything we might have imagined," Dawn replied. The Praetorian began to depart. 5 kill teams remained. 500 men. 500 good men. From the distant ridge, one baleful eye watched. His sons in crimson plate forming a concentric ring around him, as etheric power danced. "The summoned are refreshed from their onslaught," Magnus observed, "and the spirits of our enemy are worked thin by fear and doubt. Let's complete this rite of ruin. The Pale Lord chides me, and I will not test his patience. He wishes to advance, and so, in my way, do I." Ahriman rose. "Colossi falls," he said. The slick rain grew in the distance, the oozing mud squirming with rising corpses, as on the hill, the monstrous beasts of antler and knotted muscle began their walk. Marshal Agatha heard the rising of Tregorian chants, drawing out the pockets of purity hugging the Aegis shield. The storm's ears of the Fifth called to the spirit of the storm. Crashing thunder rocketed down, sending tides of mud and blood into the air. As the wail of the Neverborn rose, the gates of Colossi burst open. A spear tip of gleaming gold, the Emperor's protectors resplendent and carrying his wrath poured forth, their void bikes soaring towards the lightning. A deep thunderous wave of white at their back, as the Kagan and his laughing sons rode on the wind. A tidal wave of gold and ivory swept through the gurgling mass of warp abominations. Gleaming guardian spears and dowels spraying demonic blood, as lightning lit the violence in scatters of cobalt and white. The victory was utter and devastating. Atop the ridge across the Colossi gate, Magnus and his cabal of sons watched the White Scars continue on, driving towards their position. "A strange turn," murmured Ahriman, slowing his breath to normal. "Colossi holds. The Pale King will be displeased." Magnus said nothing, turning away. "Lupercal!" Tybalt Mars' Reaver Squadron had cheered, as the siege ramp burst open into the Saturnine wall cellars. From the shadows, bolts of fire reaped forward. Sons of Horus skulls burst, shards of ceramite and splatters of blood decorating the walls, as the bodies tumbled to the ground. Feeling the last essence of his life bleed out, Tybalt Mar raised his head, watching the lunar wolf stride through the smoke. "Garviel," he wheezed. "To the death, Tybalt," said Loken, as the last bolter round echoed in the chamber. Bel Sepetus fired his jump pack, diving into the murder pit below. He rammed his power blade into the Justerian wounded, the fire of bolt rounds above trickling into silence. "My lord," an approaching Blood Angel asked. "One more," said Sepetus, looking around. 50 men, 1 leader. Where is the leader?" His voice echoed behind the running form of Horus Aximand. Garrow was already running, 2 squads at his back. "Consolidate!" he roared, as heavy bolt fire raked through the unsuspecting Sons of Horus. Endred Har stopped punching the Sons of Horus legionary with his power fist, paused, then decided on one more for luck. "Black dog to trickster," Har said. "This one's done. Delta is cleared. Where now?" From the command station Saturnine adjacent, kill feeds danced upon the green-lit screens. Naismith, Strife, Black Dog and 7th, kill confirmations as Brightest and Galore were moving. All kill teams, the Vox screamed. Prepare for teleport strike, stand ready. The flare of teleport danced around the chamber, the blue haze illuminating the corpses with kill shots in helmets. Falcus Kyber cursed at his men, attempting to rein in the panic. The operation was kept at utmost secrecy, yet they were compromised. Reeking fire smashed into the Terminator plate. As Kyber roared, "Illuminate them!" Garrow's cover was crumbling, even with half of Strife still operational. An ambush against Terminator plate had proved ineffective. Booming explosions shattered the rockcrete into shards, as Garrow saw one of the Mournival, Falcus Kyber marching towards their position. A wave of fire arced from the flank, punching Terminator helms and halting the advance of the 16th Elite. "Garrow, you're still alive?" came a familiar voice in the Vox. "Galor," rasped Garrow. "7th at your side," Galor replied, as legionaries in amber burst into the chamber. Arcs of lightning sparked the chamber with new light, as with his drawn Libertas, Garrow's strike thundered into Kyber's mace. Sparks flew as Astartes' strength pushed against each other. Garrow smelt the stink of the warp on the Mournival, diabolic strength forcing him back. A blow from the side rocked Garrow off his feet, Libertas tumbling and piercing the stone. Kyber stalked towards Garrow, munitions flying around them as his hand slid to the handle of Libertas, ready to decapitate Garrow with his own blade. It would not move. With warp-infused Astartes' strength, the blade would not move. Garrow's knee rocketed into Kyber's helm. Effortlessly, the knight drew his blade from the stone and rammed it into Kyber's gut. Garrow tore the blade up, parting the traitorous Mournival, and hearing the warp shriek of whatever creature had piloted him. "Throne of Terra, you poor bastard," Garrow mumbled, as he cleaved Kyber's spluttering head from his shoulders. Loken felt the thundering treads of Naismith behind him, as they passed through another corridor. The air's pressure bulged, and then burst down the length of the hallway. In a rush of sudden radiance, black-plated figures popped into reality, one by one in rapid succession. Bolters were already up and firing, as Loken caught sight of the hulking beast in black plate, its form perverted, and his face a horrifying mirror of a dead brother. "Loken," wheezed Tormageddon. The demon-bloated body moved faster than Loken could have imagined, whirring chain teeth, and the dull edge of Rubio's power sword did little to brunt the tide. The last lunar wolf could not hope to match the twisted parody of strength, yet its lack of grace provided hope, as Loken tried to force it into errors, ducking lumbering blows as the sword simply bounced off its armor. Their chainswords screamed and locked, as Tormageddon clamped his chain fist over Loken's helm and began to squeeze. Ceramite shards cut into Loken's face as he disengaged the seals, dropping low for one last desperate thrust. A deep thud smashed to the ground, as the violated body of his once friend lies still, with arcs of blue light shining down its length. Rubio's sword ripped free from Tormageddon's heart. The infernal demon within vanished by the power of the sword that crackled with life. The Emperor protects. Haunting laughter echoed around the destruction upon the Saturnine wall, fire and blood decorating the miles of rockcrete, as the torment of the 3rd Legion's attack reduced mortals and Astartes into playthings. "Poor frightened child," giggled Fulgrim, his voice a cadence of vile music. From porcelain delicate hands he drew a silver blade, ready to play with the squirming Imperial fist under his foot. A shade from the smoke thundered into him, hacking and stabbing. Something was hurting him. "Get off! Get away from me!" Fulgrim exclaimed. He was 3 times the Templar's size, and he kicked out, like a man kicking out an aggressive beast, and knocked Sigismund backwards. Sigismund was up again, thrusting and cutting again as Fulgrim squealed at the sacrilege. A strand of silver hair fell. Fulgrim battered the Templar away, as an even greater shadow emerged.
Sigismund's courage sometimes outstrips his abilities.
Fulgrim stopped. He turned. He smiled with blood-pinked teeth. Rogel Dawn glared back at him. He flexed his grip on his raised greatsword.
Mine doesn't.
Your pretty wall is broken, Rogel!
Fulgrim declared. He lashed his blade into Dawn's shield and drew splinters.
Your famous fortress is undone! It's...
Dawn's blow knocked the next words from his mouth. Fulgrim stumbled, as Dawn's greatsword tore into his ribs. Fulgrim struck back, but found only shield again.
You are a man in a broken tower! You stand so proud and so defiant, ignoring the fact that the tower is falling around you. It will...
Another blow. Fulgrim staggered away, then spun, head lowered, hair billowing, keeping his distance. Dawn lunged away, driving his shield into body and face. Fulgrim threw him off and leapt aside.
So silent, Rogel. No words of denial, no pleading for me to change my foolish ways and come back to you, no. You can tell me it's not too late. You can promise me sweet forgiveness.
Dawn blocked into him, broke his guard with his shield and buried his blade into Fulgrim's shoulder meat. Then body smashed him across the platform.
Deeds are my words,
Dawn said. Fulgrim nodded and spat blood again.
Always,
he agreed, licking the blood off his teeth.
You were never the wit, never one for fine conversation, just hard at work and...
Dawn broke his guard again with another lunge, carving a chunk of plate from Fulgrim's flank. Fulgrim surged and hammered out 9 rapid blows, each one a master kill stroke. Dawn blocked each one. Their blades flew, ringing against each other, drawing sparks. Fulgrim danced backwards as Dawn advanced. Fulgrim wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and smeared blood across his cheek.
Are you really not going to try and convince me that I've made a mistake? Talk me back into the fold where I can make amends.
Dawn surged and threw 2 rapid blows that Fulgrim only blocked with effort.
No,
said Dawn, and he struck again. A low slice that Fulgrim parried, then a high back cut that tore through Fulgrim's gorget and scattered broken rings of golden mail.
I'm just going to kill you,
the Phoenician growled, and charged 2 steps. Dawn met his first slash with his shield, and countered his second with his blade. A third he parried, a fourth. He turned aside, a squealing slide of steel that threw off sparks. Fulgrim backed off, arms spread and circling.
Are you now? How bold, how empty. Look around.
Dawn's glare remained fixed on Fulgrim. He feinted a step, a bait Fulgrim took, then rammed the Phoenician with his shield and hammered 2 blows into his ribs with his pommel before they broke contact again.
I said, look around!
Fulgrim snapped. Blood was streaming from his wounds, rolling down his gashed armor. Some had got into his hair. He tossed his sword from one hand to hand, then seized the grip with both and hacked down at Dawn. Dawn blocked with a raised shield, turned out and raked his blade deep across Fulgrim's chest. Fulgrim stumbled clear.
Look around! Look around! See what's happening, Rogel. Your tower is tumbling down. No more running to Daddy, crying, look, look what I've built! It took you years to make this, and in one night, I roll down upon you, crack your shield, and build a foothold!
Dawn stamped at him, and they traded 4 swift blows that chimed like bells.
Look,
said Dawn. His gaze did not shift from Fulgrim's face.
I don't have to. I see it all.
All what?
Snarled Fulgrim. He swung. Dawn turned the blade aside.
I see your siege machines burning at the foot of the wall. I see your sonic weapons silenced. I see your host, foolishly committed in its entirety, pouring into a run of wall that could be held by a force a 10th that size.
Their blades flashed and rang again. Dawn lost a chunk of his shield, as Fulgrim took a laceration to the shoulder.
And is held by a force a 10th that size,
said Dawn calmly.
Imperial fists, now bolstered by the 200 Legiones Astartes veterans I brought with me. 200 veterans who are skilled in every doctrine of war, who have rallied this garrison and this wall stretch, and are now slaughtering the vanguard you so wantonly committed. They thank you for giving them such a wealth of bodies to reap. You have no foothold.
I have!
Fulgrim roared. He smashed his blade at Dawn, a series of furious strokes. Dawn parried them away. Only one got through and gouged his shoulder guard.
No,
said Dawn as they circled again.
You're a fine fighter, but a poor strategist. You committed everything against a gap that could be held. You've burned the cream of your host for nothing, made them cannon fodder. 9,000 dead and counting. I know, Fulgrim. I know everything.
You know nothing!
Fulgrim cried. He railed in, and his gleaming blade sliced the flesh above Dawn's right eye. Dawn caved his ribs with the edge of the shield, punched him in the face with his sword's guard, and kicked him backwards.
You've let yourself be used as a distraction,
said Dawn, keeping his gaze on his adversary, ignoring the blood pouring down his face.
You've let your host be decimated for nothing. The Saturnine ruse, I know about that too, has failed. Perturabo played his move and lost his piece. You're just a pawn. Was it the Lord of Iron who fooled you into this? Lupercal? Abaddon? You must have been willing. Were you getting bored with it? The spear tip is broken. You're holding a gate for no one. You're just an idiot standing on a wall.
A blade in his gut. Fulgrim rested his head upon his brother's broken shoulder. His jeweled eyes took in the truth. A legion as distracted and broken as their father, absorbed by the delight of suffering in the face of strategic victory. They were all fools, idiots standing on a wall. It really failed, then? The Mournival plan? He asked. It did. They're all dead. Dawn bit back. Oh, Fulgrim smiled. The Phoenician's features grew cold. Smoke bloomed from the tally of wounds, as his form began to run liquid. I am sick of all of this, all of it. The others can find a way to grind you down and bring your fortress low. I cannot die, but I feel the pain, and I won't take any more of it, Fulgrim said, as his skin bloated and elongated. Leathery wings jutted from his back, as his legs fused and sprouted psychedelic scales. Arraying around their demonic father, the vile and colourful forms of Eidolon, Volcalda, Phodion, and 50 other gleaming warriors of the Emperor's Children elite guard rallied. Regal Dawn shrugged his shoulders. Try me, he said. as the sons of the Phoenix pounced, the form of their father slithering away, bored and seeking new sensations. "To the death!" Sigismund roared, his blade sending the severed head into the melee that surrounded his lord. Back to back, the Praetorian and the Templar stood, as they launched into the fray. Bone-shattering vibrations rocked at Dawn's already beaten armor, as he smashed a legionary into the rockcrete, his form bursting in a welter of decorative ceramite and gore. Sigismund ploughed forward, cutting down two as he pushed Eidolon to the wall's edge. Titanic blows rang like bells as the champions of different fathers rammed into each other, their blades punching flesh. Eidolon's face warped from glee to horror as Sigismund rent his blade out, kicking Eidolon in the chest and sending him plummeting into the abyss below. The cheers began to raise from the kill team's devotion and Helios, and the last of the wall's defenders. Following their lord's departure, the vile sons of Fulgrim began to flee. Liquid rockcrete flowed over the viewports of the siege drills below Saturnine. Lev Goshen barked at the Magos beside him. He begged for solution, for activation of the drills as the encompassing darkness around them began to set in. The crushing weight of finality, of unescapable death gripped the son of Horus. "How long will our power last?" asked Goshen somberly. 169 days, said the Magos behind him. "How long does your kind live?" the Magos asked. "Why," answered Goshen, "because that is how long you will be here," said the Magos. Amongst a floor caked in gore, filled with sea green and black armors, amber and red dotted amongst it, Nathaniel Garrow, Bel Sepetus, and Endrid Har cleaned their weapons, their kill teams reloading and addressing wounds. Frosted blue light illuminated around them, as in a bang of compression, Abaddon and 100 Testosterone appeared. A mosh pit of violence erupted, as the sons of Horus engaged the enemy that should not have been here. Abaddon killed with astonishing speed and meticulous efficiency. For the first minute of the fight he merely tried to center his thoughts and reconcile the sudden reverse of fortune. He cursed the Lord of Iron, spat vile names in his mind as the realization dawned. He had allowed Abaddon to see it, the fault, allowed him to beg for this, allowed him to be blinded by glory, so that if the gambit failed, his dishonor fell at the sons of Horus's feet. Ceramite and blood flew wildly, as Abaddon's schemes seemed to recede like ghosts, like dreams departing at sunrise. A knight in silver leapt at Abaddon. Garrow was good, Abaddon thought, as two strikes pierced his black plate. But he was Abaddon. He was first captain of the sons of Horus, and he would die on his feet. Abaddon roared and lunged forward, grappling Garrow and smashing him against the wall. A warrior in crimson plate interjected, Sepetus. Abaddon knew him and relished the challenge. His blood sang as their blades clashed. He was polished, a refinement of the Astartes pinnacle. Abaddon cut him in half. The Riven Hound slammed Abaddon into the wall. Brick shattered. Abaddon felt bones break and organs rupture. He felt the enormous hand around his neck, squeezing and bursting ceramite. It took 7 gut-ramming strikes to slow him down. Abaddon fell, as the enormous weight of Har pinned him to the ground. He couldn't move. He felt his wounds pouring as he looked to the slaughter around him. His men, his brothers were dying, as the form of Garrow, blade in hand and ray, stalked towards him. In shimmering blue light, he was gone, back into the numbing quiet of the siege drill, in a compartment teeming with dark Mechanicum adepts, filled with the now empty seats of his brothers. Abaddon lay broken and at the edge of death. "Let me go back," Abaddon whispered. He had begun weeping. "Let me go back." Alone, scurrying like vermin in the dark, Horus Aximan felt the breath on the back of his neck and turned. A warrior in white plate emerged. Aximan's features turned to horror as he saw the face that had haunted him for a decade. "You're a dream," he balked. "A nightmare." "That perhaps," said Loken. "You should be dead." "I decided to live," said Loken, "so that you and your kind could die." Chain teeth and glowing psychic blades smashed against Mornitor. "You've always been there. I know it," Aximan howled. "That's probably just your guilt," said Loken. The clangs ran out as Loken unleashed a flurry of blows. He ducked, then parried Aximan's wild thrust. Loken rammed his chainsaw through Aximan's gut, watching the light leave his eyes as he dropped Monitor to the ground. Through the smoke and ruins of the capital, Genetia Kroll stalked, her Zweihander blade slick with the blood of world eaters and demons. That boy, the one with the data slate, she would have liked to have added to it, for she was the last. She had seen them all fall. Custodian Tsuotsumo, William Cordy, 33rd Pan Pac Lift Mobile, Joseph Bacco Monday, 18th Regiment, Nordafric Resistance Army. She killed 3 more World Eaters, each stunned by the sin of her existence, giving time to snap heads from shoulders. Then she saw him. He was a giant even amongst his own kind. 8th Captain Khan, and he was running towards her, his pace unhalted by her null presence. Genetia Kroll raised her blade veracity and lifted it to strike. Khan felt the wash of blood over his armor. He saw the kill counter in his helm tick once more. The berserker halted in confusion until the nails began to bite again. Piers knew that if he was still here, he would have asked if he was afraid. And of course he would have lied, even as his legs shook. So that's what a Primarch looks like, he thought. The shitting ball-bag lord of eaters, big as hell itself. Eternity Spaceport was lost, its ruins in flame as smoke. And the screams, by the Emperor, the screams, he thought. He stood alone, a lone guardsman next to the banner of the Emperor, as the demon Primarch Angron stared him down. "Come on then," Piers yelled. "Show me what all the fuss is about." Angron snorted, as Piers aimed Old Bess up. "Throne of Terra! Throne of Terra!" Piers roared, as Angron let out an ear-splitting howl, and charged. The Lord of Baal took a seat, the subtle booms of artillery still audible deep within Gorgon Bar. "I understand you have made a gain. A decent one. Arcamus was tight-lipped," said Sanguinius. Dawn stood, letting his sight drift over the tactical displays, seeing the red zones around Eternity, and the green around Colossi and Saturnine. "I had hoped for more, but yes," he replied. "An engagement at Saturnine. 3 full companies of the Sons of Horus destroyed, including the first. The Mournival annihilated." The Lord of Blood looked to his brother in stunned silence. "We repelled the Phoenician from the wall there. The Phoenician and his entire legion." Sanguinius began to laugh at his brother's cavalier attitude. "Great Terra, Rogel. This is a victory for us. For you," he said. Dawn nodded. "And I mark it as such. You know the real irony. Fulgrim could have taken the wall. Excess was his undoing, as ever. Sanguinius smiled, ever surprised by the awkwardness of the brother he had grown fond of in these recent years. I thought I was going to be the one bearing better news. That's why I came, to tell you in person.
You have my full attention,
said Dawn. On a face that rarely depicted emotion, surprise dawned, as Sanguinius spoke his truth. The traitor homeworlds had been razed. The others, Gilliman, the lion, all they had to do was hold.
Will you use that?
Sinderman asked, as Loken ran the Westone along the length of Mornital. I learned things, Kirill, Loken said. On the killing floors. There were things I thought I already knew, but I didn't really, not fully. I saw exactly what our enemy has made our brothers into, the weapons he has fashioned out of them. And I saw that the Emperor has done the same.
The same?
Asked Sinderman. In a way. A different way, I suppose, said Loken, raising Rubio's glowing blade. In the sphere of Jupiter, with every ship powered to life support only, the battered fleet of the Imperial survivors drifted. Admiral Sukasen, mistress of the Phalanx, did not raise her voice above a whisper, as the master of the Vox signaled her over. The picked feeds crackled to life. A small fleet, military formation, Astartes vessels. Incoming visual, the Vox master whispered. Display it, Sukasen whispered back. The picked feed came to life. Unmistakable black armor, bearing bladed wings covered the screen.
I am Corswain of the Dark Angels.
The Vox speakers crackled.
We have come to stand with Terra.